Living large, living loud, stacking paper high, chasing dreams all the way to the sky. From rags to riches in the blink of an eye, friendships in the vault where the old bonds die. Parties on rooftops, crystals in the dark, lost in the glitz till we miss the mark. Gold turned to chains, heavy on the heart, the price of a wish tearing us apart. Crew, we just hit the jackpot stacks. Money taller, now we on the top of the map. But grease slid in like a police trap. Trust broke down, can't avoid that cap. Friends turn foes, plot a twist, no script. Lies and blood, bills ain't clean, they drip. Versace steering wheel, now we in for a trip. We used to be friends, but our bond just ripped. We hit, 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 we hit.
Chapter 20, Election Night. Ladarius drifted in and out of consciousness as he was wheeled down the sterile hospital corridor. The fluorescent lights above flickered by in a blur, and the sounds of hurried footsteps and urgent voices faded in and out like a distant echo. He felt the cold of the gurney beneath him, a stark contrast to the burning pain in his abdomen. His vision blurred, but through the haze, he could make out Kisi walking beside him, her face etched with worry and fear. "Ladarius, stay with me!" Kisi's voice trembled as she tried to keep up with the doctors and nurses surrounding him. Ladarius struggled to focus on her, his lips parting to speak. "Kisi!" His voice was weak, barely a whisper. Don't tell anybody about what happened." Kisi's brow furrowed in confusion, her eyes wide with fear. "Why? Ladarius, what are you talking about? You need help. They need to know what happened." Ladarius clenched his teeth against the pain, forcing his eyes to meet hers. "Just don't," he managed to say before the darkness began to close in on him again. His head lolled back, and his grip on consciousness slipped away as shock overwhelmed him. "Ladarius!" Kisi's voice broke, filled with panic as she watched him fade in and out of awareness. The gurney picked up speed as the medical team rushed him into the emergency room, the doors swinging shut behind them, leaving Kisi in the hallway, trembling and confused. She stood there for a moment, her mind racing. Why didn't he want anyone to know? What was he trying to protect? As she watched the doors to the emergency room, Kisi knew that whatever Ladarius was involved in, it was far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. She felt a knot of dread tighten in her stomach, unsure of what to do next, but knowing that she had to respect his wishes, at least for now. Alex, Jason, and Mario were seated at their usual breakfast spot, a quaint diner on the edge of town. The air was tense, their usual banter replaced by a heavy silence. The previous night's events weighed heavily on their minds, and the ordinarily comforting aroma of coffee and sizzling bacon did little to lift their spirits. Alex was the first to break the silence, his voice low and filled with disbelief. "I still can't believe what happened to Tara. It just doesn't make any sense." Jason, who had been quietly staring at his untouched plate, nodded slowly. "It's been haunting me all night. I keep thinking, could it have been Anterial? Could she have snapped?" Mario, lost in his thoughts, suddenly snapped his head up, his eyes blazing with anger. "So what the fuck are you saying, Jason? Do you think she could have done this?" "I don't know, but we are all one bad day away from prison," Jason says. Alex quickly tried to calm the situation, sensing the tension rising. Whoa, nobody's saying that for sure, Mario. We're just trying to make sense of things. It's all so crazy. We need to consider everything." Jason raised his hands, trying to show he meant no harm. "Look, I'm not accusing anyone, but you have to admit, it's weird. They were all together, and now Tara's gone. And Anterial, she was there when the chief pulled up. I'm just saying." Mario's face turned a dark shade of red, his temper flaring. "You don't know her like I do. She would never hurt Tara. She wouldn't hurt anyone." Alex and Jason look at each other like that's a lie, but they let Mario talk. I'm not saying she did, Mario, but we can't rule anything out. This situation is a nightmare, Jason says, and we have to look at it from every angle. All right, let's all take a step back and breathe. We're all hurting and we're all confused, Alex says. But we're not going to get anywhere by turning on each other. We need to stay together and figure this out. Has anybody heard from Ladarius? He was supposed to be here. Mario sat back in his chair, his chest heaving as he tried to calm himself down. The rage was still simmering just beneath the surface when Mario's phone rings, and Mario sees that it's Lori, his lawyer, telling him Antiriel is being let go. Mario pulled up to the precinct, his mind racing about everything that had happened. The ordinarily confident and composed man was a bundle of nerves as he waited for Antiriel to emerge from the building. When she finally did, her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying, and her steps were slow and heavy. She opened the car door and slid into the passenger seat, her body language speaking volumes. They sat silently for a few moments, the weight of the situation hanging heavily in the air between them. Mario's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he stole a glance at Antiriel, her face turned away from him, staring out the window. He wanted to say anything to break the tension, but the words wouldn't come. Finally, he managed to ask, "Do you want something to eat?" Antiriel didn't respond, her silence thick and impenetrable. The minutes ticked by, and the quiet in the car became almost unbearable. As Mario was about to speak again, Antiriel broke down, her emotions spilling over. She started to cry, her shoulders shaking as she brought her hands to her face, trying to stifle the sobs. Mario's heart broke seeing her like this. He quickly pulled the car over to the side of the road, putting it in park as he turned to face her. Hey, it's okay," he said softly, reaching out to place a comforting hand on her shoulder. Antiriel shook her head, her tears falling harder as she hit her hands on the dashboard in frustration. "Who would do this?" she cried out, her voice filled with pain and anger. "Why, Mario? Why would someone do this to her?" Mario wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close as she buried her face in his chest, her cries muffled against him. He held her tightly, his own eyes welling up with tears as he felt her pain. "I don't know, baby," he whispered, stroking her hair gently. "I don't know, but we'll get through this. I promise you. We're going to get through this." Mario's phone buzzed in his pocket as they sat there, clinging to each other in the parked car. He reached for it, still holding Antiriel close with one arm. It was a call from his daughter. He hesitated momentarily, not wanting to break the moment, but he knew she was probably worried. He answered the call, his voice soft. "Hey, sweetie. Dad, where are you? Are you okay?" she asked, concern lacing her words. "Yeah, I'm okay," Mario replied, his voice steadying as he tried to sound reassuring. "We'll be home soon, all right?" Later that night, Mary was deep in thought when the door to her room creaked open and her daughter poked her head inside. "Mom, Antiriel is sad? Can we do something nice for her?" Mary felt a surge of anger rise within her at the mention of Antiriel, but she quickly suppressed it, reminding herself that she needed to maintain the facade. She forced a smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "That's a sweet idea, honey," she replied, her tone carefully neutral. Inside, Mary's thoughts were far less kind. Hell no, fuck her, she thought bitterly, the memory of everything she'd been through with Antiriel flashing through her mind. But she knew better than to let those thoughts show. She had to play her part, pretending she remembered nothing. It was the only way to keep her plans intact. Oblivious to Mary's internal struggle, her daughter continued. "I was thinking we could get her some candy and flowers. It's the least we can do, right?" Mary's initial reaction was to dismiss the idea, but then something clicked. The mention of flowers sparked an idea in her mind that was both devious and fitting. Flowers? No, let's give her something better. A slow smile spread across Mary's face, this time genuine, though it carried a hidden meaning. "Let's get her a houseplant, the biggest one we can find." Her daughter's face lit up with enthusiasm. "Yes, that would be awesome. Let's do it, Mom." Mary nodded, her smile never faltering as she hugged her daughter. "Let's go get it then. I'm sure she'll appreciate it." Mary's mind was already racing with plans as they left the room. The houseplant would be the perfect cover. This seemingly innocent gesture would allow her to maintain her appearance of forgetfulness, while setting the stage for something much more sinister. She would play along for now, but she knew that Antiriel would soon find herself caught in a trap she never saw coming. Ladarius slowly regained consciousness the next day. The sterile scent of the hospital room seeps into his senses. The pain in his abdomen throbbed dully, a reminder of how close he had come to the brink. He winced as he shifted slightly, trying to get comfortable. At the foot of his bed, a doctor was checking his chart. "You're lucky," the doctor said, glancing up from the clipboard. "The blade missed any vital organs. We've got you stitched up, and with some rest, you should fully recover. But you need to take it easy for a while." Ladarius nodded, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "Thank you, Doc." The doctor offered a brief, reassuring smile before leaving the room. As the door closed, Ladarius immediately turned to Kesey, who had been sitting silently by his side, her eyes filled with worry. "Hand me my phone," Ladarius said, his voice firm despite the pain. "And you didn't tell anybody about this, right?" Kesey shook her head, her concern evident. "No, I didn't tell anyone, but what happened? I come downstairs and you're lying there, covered in blood. What the hell is going on? I've been here all night, hoping you would pull through." Ladarius hesitated, his mind racing as he tried to find the right words. "I can't tell you everything, but I'm glad you're safe. That's all that matters right now." Kesey frowned, clearly unsatisfied with his answer, but too shaken to press further. "Well, since you don't want to talk about why you almost died, I'm taking my ass home to change clothes and check on the house. The doctor said you could eat. Do you want me to bring you something back?" "Yes, please," Ladarius replied, forcing a small smile. "I'm starving." Kesey nodded, squeezing his hand before standing up. "I'll be back soon." Ladarius leaned back into the pillows as she walked out, his mind churning with thoughts of betrayal and anger. The physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional wound left by Emmanuel's actions. How could a friendship that had lasted so many years be reduced to this? The realization stung more than the knife ever could. I guess Emmanuel was never my friend. His gaze shifted to the TV on the wall, where the local news played silently. His breath caught as he saw the election coverage. Emmanuel was leading in the polls, his charismatic grin plastered across the screen as he spoke to a crowd of supporters, unaware of the chaos his actions had unleashed, as the TV showed the campaign office packed with people. Ladarius stared at the screen, his hands clenching into fists. The betrayal burned in his chest, the hurt mixing with a growing sense of anger. Everything they had built, all the trust and loyalty, was gone. Emmanuel had used him, discarded him like he was nothing. As the news anchor continued to sing Emmanuel's praises, a single tear slid down Ladarius's face. At the campaign headquarters, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Emmanuel scanned the bustling room, his eyes narrowing as they landed on Trey, leaning casually against a desk, scrolling through his phone. Without wasting a moment, Emmanuel approached him, his voice low and urgent. "Is it done?" Emmanuel asked, his tone clipped. Trey barely looked up from his phone. He echoed, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. He finally met Emmanuel's gaze and continued. "Where's my money?" Emmanuel's patience was wearing thin. "You know tonight is election night, right? How am I supposed to make that work?" Trey's expression hardened. "I don't give a good goddamn," he shot back, his voice edged with irritation. "Yesterday was my birthday, and you didn't care, so why should I? I need my money." Before Emmanuel could respond, Kim entered the room, her presence commanding immediate attention. "Money? What money?" she asked, her eyes darting between the two men. Trey turned to Kim, his gaze cold and unyielding. "Kim, you've got bigger shit you need to be worried about." Emmanuel bristled at the way Trey addressed his wife. "Now wait a minute, Trey. Don't talk to my wife like that." Trey's eyes flashed with anger as he stepped closer to Emmanuel. "You might want to sit down, Emmanuel," he hissed, his voice dripping with menace. "But like I said, I want my damn money." With that, Trey stormed out of the room, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Kim turned to Emmanuel, her face a mask of confusion and suspicion. "What the hell do y'all have going on?" Emmanuel ignored her, his mind racing as he tried to figure out how to handle the situation. Kim, not one to be dismissed easily, pressed on. "I don't trust him, Emmanuel. I told you. You should have gotten Ladarius instead." Emmanuel paused, her words hitting a nerve. His eyes darkened as he turned to Kim, his voice cold. "Go find something else to do." Kim stood there for a moment, stunned by his tone, before she turned and left the room, the tension between them crackling like electricity. Emmanuel was left alone, his thoughts churning as he tried to navigate the increasingly precarious situation. Alex was straightening his tie, getting ready to head out to the election party, when Olivia walked into the room, her expression tense and serious. He noticed the look on her face and paused, sensing something was off. "Alex, I've got something to tell you," Olivia began, her voice tinged with hesitation. Alex turned to her, eyebrows raised. "Okay, what do you have to tell me?" Olivia took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. You remember when we were in Tokyo and the girls had a spa day? Well, I just remembered something. Me, Kim, and Kisi left the changing room before the other girls. I forgot my phone, so I turned around to go get it. When I went back, I heard Tara, Michelle, and Antiriel arguing. Alex stopped adjusting his tie, his attention now fully on Olivia. Arguing? About what? Olivia hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. I heard what I thought was Michelle saying, "You killed her. You killed her, god damn it. And we need to tell somebody." At first, I couldn't figure out who they were talking about, but I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days, and didn't you say they found Mary out in the middle of nowhere, almost dead? Alex froze, his mind racing as he processed what Olivia told him. He slowly put down the tie he had been holding and turned to face her fully. Olivia, why are you just now telling me this? It just clicked, Alex. I had to process it, she said, her voice shaky. I didn't think much of it at the time. I didn't think they'd kill somebody. Hell, I didn't think any of these folks would be dead. My phone rang, and I got the hell out of there. I didn't want them to see me. The room was thick with tension as Alex absorbed Olivia's words. The implications of what she had overheard in Tokyo were staggering. He knew he needed to be careful about handling this information, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were now caught up in something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. We need to figure out what the hell is going on, Alex finally said, his voice steady but his mind racing. This changes everything. The driver is outside, but let's keep this between me and you tonight, okay? Alex says. As Jason and Ashley were driven to the campaign party, the tension between them was palpable. It had been days since Tara's death, and Jason hadn't seen much of Ashley since that fateful night. The silence in the car was heavy, broken only by the engine's hum and the city's distant sounds. Unable to hold back any longer, Jason turned to Ashley, his voice laced with frustration. What's wrong with you? I haven't heard from you that much. Ashley responded under her breath, barely audible. I bet you heard from one of your little hoes. Jason's brow furrowed, catching her words. What did you just say? Ashley didn't hold back this time. Yeah, I bet you have heard from one of your little hoes. Jason looked at her in shock, completely blindsided by her outburst. What are you talking about, Ashley? With a glare that could cut glass, Ashley snapped back. Michelle's bald ass had the nerve to try and go off on me the other night. In the process, she said you like to trick off. And I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not that. Jason's eyes widened in disbelief. She's lying, Ashley. She's just mad because I wouldn't pay her any mind. She's crazy. And while you're up in my face, who the fuck is Trey? Ashley's anger flared up even more at the mention of Trey. Trey? You're worried about Trey? She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. Yes, I am. Because once you two started coming around, folks started ending up dead. Ashley's frustration grew as she stared at him, trying to understand everything. Your hand isn't the only thing messed up around here, Ashley muttered, her voice tinged with exhaustion and anger. Just as Jason was about to respond, the driver interrupted. We've arrived at the event. The tension in the car was suffocating, but they both knew they had to put on a show. As the car came to a stop, they composed themselves, their faces transforming into smiles as they prepared to face the cameras and the crowd. But deep down, they were both simmering, ready to crash out at any moment. The show of unity was a facade, barely concealing the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. As Alex and Olivia arrived at the campaign party, the energy in the room was palpable, with supporters buzzing about Emmanuel's potential victory. However, as they made their way through the crowded room, they could hear raised voices coming from the corner where their friends were gathered. When they got closer, they found Jason and Ashley in a heated argument with Michelle. Ashley's face was flushed with anger as she pointed the finger at Michelle. You have some nerve, Michelle! You're always starting something! Michelle shot back, her tone equally sharp. Oh, please, Ashley. You're just mad because I spoke the truth. Maybe you should worry about your issues. Jason, standing beside Ashley, looked ready to jump into the fray. Michelle, you need to stay out of our business. You're just mad because you're miserable. Michelle scoffed, rolling her eyes. Miserable? At least I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. I don't need to put on a show for anyone. Chris walked into the area before the argument could escalate further, immediately picking up on the tension. His eyes narrowed as he saw Jason and Ashley, his anger bubbling up. What the hell's going on here? He demanded, his voice cutting through the commotion. Jason turned his glare toward Chris. Who invited your ass? Chris's expression hardened. I could ask the same question. How are you supposed to clap for Emmanuel when he wins, you jackass? Hell no, I'm not sitting with these folks. Fuck them. Already on edge, Jason stepped forward aggressively. Nobody is stopping you from leaving. Ashley grabbed Jason's arm, trying to pull him back. Jason, stop it. This isn't the time or place. Just as the situation seemed ready to boil over, Alex and Olivia stepped in, calming the chaos. Alex positioned himself between the groups, his voice firm. All right, that's enough. We've had too much drama lately. Tonight is about Emmanuel, not us. Can we please keep it together for a few hours? Olivia nodded in agreement, placing a hand on Ashley's shoulder. Let's just focus on the party and keep things civil, okay? With the immediate confrontation diffused, Alex and Olivia positioned themselves between the two parties, ensuring peace. The group settled into an uneasy silence, the previous excitement of the night dampened by the altercation. As they sat down, trying to refocus on the campaign party, Kim appeared from the crowd, her face lit up with enthusiasm despite the weariness in her eyes. Hey, you guys, she called out, approaching them with a smile. Thanks for showing up. It looks like we might pull this off. Her presence brought a reprieve from the tension, and the group managed to muster some smiles and nods of encouragement. Kim's optimism was infectious, even if only momentarily. Where's Ladarius and Kesey? Kim asked, scanning the group. The group exchanged uneasy glances. Alex was the first to speak, trying to keep his voice steady. We haven't heard from Ladarius and Kesey. They've been kind of MIA tonight. Michelle nodded, adding, yeah, and we're not sure where they are. Hopefully they're just running late. Kesey hurried through the hospital corridors, balancing a tray of takeout containers in one hand and her purse in the other. The drive back had taken much longer than she had anticipated, and the streets were congested with traffic as everyone flocked to Emmanuel's campaign party. She had no idea the city would be this packed, but it was election night, and tensions were high everywhere. As she reached Ladarius's room, she pushed the door open with her shoulder, already launching into an explanation. Sorry, it took me so long. The traffic to Emmanuel's party was insane, and I couldn't even find parking. I had to... Her voice trailed off as she looked up and realized the bed was empty. Kesey froze, her heart skipping a beat. The tray wobbled in her hand, and she quickly set it down on the small table near the door. Ladarius? She called out, her voice shaky. She scanned the room, her eyes darting from the bed to the small bathroom attached. She quickly approached the bathroom door, knocking lightly before pushing it open. Ladarius, are you in here? She asked. But the bathroom was empty, the sink still dry and untouched. Panic began to settle in. She turned back to the room, her mind racing. Where could he have gone? He was barely out of surgery. How could he disappear? Kesey rushed into the hallway, her breath coming in short, quick gasps as she frantically looked around. The bustling hospital was a blur of white coats and patients, none of whom were Ladarius. Her vision began to narrow, her anxiety spiking as the reality of the situation hit her. Ladarius was gone. She leaned against the wall, trying to calm herself, but it was useless. Where is he? She whispered, her mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. Had someone taken him? Had he wandered off in a daze? The possibilities were endless, and none of them were good. Kesey's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, her fingers fumbling as she tried to dial Ladarius's number. But as she stared at the screen, she realized there was no way he could answer. His phone was still on the bedside table in the room. She felt her legs begin to give out, the weight of the situation overwhelming her. But just as she was about to collapse, a nurse approached, noticing her distress. Ma'am, are you all right? The nurse asked, her voice calm and reassuring. Kesey shook her head, barely able to form words. My fiancé, he was just here. He's gone. I don't know where he is. The nurse immediately acted, signaling for help and guiding Kesey to a nearby chair. Don't worry, we'll find him, the nurse assured her. But Kesey's mind was already spiraling out of control. In the dimly lit living room, Mario and Anteriel sat together on the couch, the soft glow of the television screen casting shadows across their faces. The tension of recent events hung heavy in the air, but for the moment, they tried to lose themselves in the live stream of Emmanuel's campaign party. The crowd cheers, flashing lights, and celebratory music all felt distant, like a world they were no longer part of. We made the right call staying home tonight, Mario said, exhaling a vapor cloud from his vape pen. Too much crazy shit has been going on lately. Best to lay low. Anteriel nodded, her eyes fixed on the screen, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She was relieved to be away from the chaos, but the nagging fear in her mind wouldn't let her fully relax. She knew things weren't over, not by a long shot. In the garage, Mary and Mario's daughter were busy potting the large houseplant they had bought for Anterior. The air was thick with the earthy smell of soil and the quiet rustle of leaves as they worked together. Mary knelt beside the pot, her movements precise and deliberate. "Sweetheart, can you go grab the other bag of soil from the backyard?" Mary asked, her tone sweet and motherly. "Sure, Mom," her daughter chirped, wiping her hands on her jeans before running out to fetch the soil. Mary's expression hardened as soon as the garage door swung shut behind her daughter. She quickly reached into her pocket and pulled out Tara's phone, the screen dark and ominous. She began digging into the soil with a calculated glance toward the door, creating a small hole beneath the plant's roots. "This is for everything you've done, Anterior," Mary whispered to herself, her voice cold and vindictive. With one last glance over her shoulder, she dropped the phone into the hole and quickly covered it with the remaining soil, pressing it down firmly. Her daughter re-entered the garage, dragging the heavy bag of soil behind her. "Got it, Mom!" she chirped, oblivious to what had happened. "Perfect timing," Mary said, her tone light and airy as she helped her daughter pour the remaining soil into the pot. Together, they patted down the soil and carefully wiped the pot's edges, ensuring everything looked perfect. With the plant now securely potted, they carried it into the house, the heavy ceramic pot weighing them down as they moved through the hallway. Their footsteps echoed in the quiet house, growing louder as they approached the living room. Mario and Anterior looked up as Mary and their daughter entered, a large, vibrant plant cradled between them. Anterior's face lit up with a smile, her tension momentarily forgotten. "Hey, look at this," Mario said, pointing at the screen with the remote. "Emmanuel just won. He pulled it off." "That's amazing," Anterior exclaimed, but her eyes were more focused on the plant than the victory on the screen. "Thank you, guys. This is beautiful. I've always wanted a plant like this." "We knew you'd love it, Anterior. We thought it'd be perfect for the living room." Anterior got up from the couch and walked over to the plant, running her fingers through the leaves with admiration. "It's perfect. I love it. Thank you so much." Mario took another puff from his vape pen, the cloud of vapor swirling lazily in the air. "It's been a hell of a night," he said, glancing back at the screen. "But hey, at least something good came out of it. Emmanuel will fix this city, and you've got your new plant." As they all settled back into the living room, the atmosphere was lighter and more relaxed. But beneath the surface, a darker truth lay buried beneath the plant's soil that now stood as a centerpiece in their home. The energy at Emmanuel's campaign party was electric. Supporters filled the room, their cheers and laughter echoing off the walls. Confetti rained down, and the air was thick with the scent of victory. The moment everyone had been waiting for was finally here. Emmanuel had been announced as the new mayor. People were dancing, hugging, and toasting to the night's success. The excitement was palpable, and the celebration was in full swing. The assistant campaign manager, a charismatic woman with a bright smile, took to the stage, her voice booming through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight to witness history in the making. It is my great honor to introduce the man who will lead this city into a brighter future, your new mayor, Emmanuel." The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers filling the air with an almost deafening roar. Standing just off stage, Emmanuel adjusted his suit jacket and prepared to step into the spotlight. But before he could move, a firm hand gripped his shoulder. He turned to find the chief standing close, his expression unreadable. The chief leaned in, his voice low and menacing. "Don't think you can't be touched," he whispered, his words chilling despite the room's warmth. Emmanuel's eyes narrowed as he locked eyes with the chief, his face hardening with resolve. The celebration around them seemed to fade for a moment, replaced by a tension that crackled in the air between them. Emmanuel gave the chief a stern look, his jaw tightening as he pulled away from the man's grip. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the stage, the crowd's cheers growing louder with each step. As Emmanuel stepped into the spotlight, the crowd's roar became deafening. Emmanuel raised his hand in acknowledgement of the crowd's applause, the stern expression he'd worn moments ago replaced with a broad, confident smile. He waved to the audience, his heart pounding with triumph and unease. He knew the eyes of the city were on him, but the chief's words echoed in his mind, a stark reminder that the challenges were far from over. His friends watched with admiration as he began his speech, thanking his supporters and promising to bring about the changes they all hoped for. They were ecstatic, knowing they were witnessing a pivotal moment for Emmanuel and all of them. Yet, beneath the surface, each carried their worries and doubts, secrets that could unravel everything they had worked for. The night was a victory, But Emmanuel knew that the real battle had only just begun. As Emmanuel neared the end of his speech, his voice grew stronger, filled with the conviction and passion that had carried him through the campaign. He looked out at the sea of faces before him, their eyes shining with hope and belief in the future he had promised. My friends, tonight we stand on the brink of a new era. This victory is not just mine, it's ours. It belongs to all of you who believed in change, fought for a better tomorrow, and dared to dream of a brighter future. Together we will rise. Together we will build a city where every voice is heard, every community thrives, and every child has the opportunity to succeed. This is just the beginning. The work starts now, and I promise you, we will not stop until our vision is realized. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in, then raised his fist in the air, his voice ringing with resolve. Because we are strong, we are united, and we are unstoppable. The crowd, swept up in the moment's emotion, began to chant with him, their voices rising in unison. Strong, united, unstoppable. Strong, united, unstoppable. Emmanuel joined in the chant, leading them. As the chant continued, Emmanuel scanned the crowd, taking in the faces of those who had stood by him, fought with him, and believed in his vision. As Emmanuel finished his speech, the crowd's energy surged to a peak. He turned, looking for Kim, eager to share this moment of triumph with her. The crowd was still chanting, their voices filling the air with hope and victory. Kim appeared from the side of the stage, smiling brightly as she waved to the cheering crowd. Emmanuel's heart swelled with pride and love as she approached him. They embraced, and Kim gave him a big kiss, sealing the moment of their shared success. Together, they turned to face the crowd, waving the picture of a perfect, victorious couple. Suddenly, the night shattered. 3 gunshots rang out, piercing the jubilant atmosphere. The realization of what was happening spread like wildfire through the crowd. Screams of terror erupted as people began to panic, pushing and shoving in a desperate attempt to find safety. With the instincts of a seasoned protector, Trey immediately rushed to the stage, his only thought to get Emmanuel to safety. Meanwhile, Alex threw himself over Olivia, shielding her with his body. Jason instinctively did the same with Ashley, pulling her down and covering her from the chaos. Chris and Michelle, caught off guard, looked around in confusion, trying to process what was happening as they sought cover. Trey reached Emmanuel and grabbed him by the arm, trying to pull him off the stage. But Emmanuel resisted, his eyes searching for Kim. "Kim! Kim!" he shouted, his voice breaking with panic. He spotted her, but something was wrong. She wasn't moving. "No, no, no! Please, no!" Emmanuel whispered in despair as he rushed to her side. He cradled her lifeless body, his mind unable to comprehend what had just happened. The world around him dissolved into a blur of noise and chaos, but he could only focus on Kim, lying motionless in his arms. With a cold, calculated movement, Ladarius began to pack up his sniper rifle, his expression unreadable. He took one last look through the scope, watching as Emmanuel cradled Kim in his arms, the weight of his loss crushing him. "I guess I won this round, bitch!" Well, what an explosive chapter that was. You've just listened to another twist in the dark tale of We Hit. If your heart's racing and you're craving more, you know what to do. Smash that like button and hit subscribe. Things are about to get even bloodier, more deceitful, and thrilling. So stay with us and brace yourselves for the next chapter.
Wow.